The fourth industrial revolution will enable us to create a new society. Artificial intelligence will transform the big data collected through the Internet of Things into new wisdom. Society 5.0, a technology-based, human-centered society. The fourth industrial revolution will raise our standard of living and solve various challenges we face. It will, for example, free us from the stress of driving, allowing us to safely visit anyone, anytime. We will have access to the latest medical advancements at a low cost, no matter where we are. AI and robots will enhance human ability and expand our infinite possibilities, helping us enjoy more fulfilling lives. Society 5.0, for the betterment of human lives.
Hello everybody, it's Max with Crypto Talk Now. Jasmy and the topic of Society 5.0. Have you heard about it? And if so, do you know where we're going with that when it comes to the country of Japan? And on top of that, edge computing, the Jasmy connection, what is that all about? So without further ado, let's go ahead and jump into today's deep dive for Jasmy. I want to give a special shout out to this particular gentleman, who is Brian once again. He can be followed over at WC3068 on Twitter. Very, very active in regards to these deep dive threads for Jasmy. He's been covering Jasmy probably a year before I did or more. Great member of the community. And I just want to say to you, Brian, can't thank you enough for some of these things that you dropped, on Twitter and so on when it comes to the community research that you provide. You, Zippy, and a lot of other people that are part of the community that provide us these constant updates or research from the past and bring it to the present and so on. KAR Finance, some of these newcomers, JB, Beyond the Barbell, you name it, Jasmy Pirate. There's some other names that are probably left off the list, not intentional. But one thing that I think we could all appreciate is this community of Jasmy content creators and so on coming together as a conglomerate group of individuals to provide us these daily updates just about when it comes to Jasmy. You are all much appreciated. Thank you very much. So look what is mentioned here, all right? This is, of course, back on April 4th, but man, is it going to tie in a lot of things that are happening here soon on the present. What am I talking about? I'm talking about Jasmy's AI engine. It's part of that Q2 2023 roadmap. Now, that may very well get delayed, but if anything, we should probably start to hear a little bit more in regards to that from Hara, especially after some of these particular conferences are coming up and so on. To me, that is to be expected. But nonetheless, check this out. So Brian has this thread, and it mentions at Hara, Jasmy CFO has expressed a common theme of Jasmy's strategy involving edge computing that he thinks is overlooked due to its technical nature. It says, let's take a look at some of his comments in previous AMAs. Now, before we get into this, I want to state this. We need to first understand just what in the world edge computing is. At least I do. So I want to draw your attention to what you're about to see right here. And this comes from Red Hat, is the source reference here. And basically, it's just like what it says. What are IoT and edge computing? Very good question. Now, most of us do know about IoT at this point when it comes to Jasmy, especially, the Internet of Things. So, like it shows right here, Internet of Things refers to the process of connecting physical objects to the Internet. IoT, like most of us know, refers to any system of physical devices or hardware that receives and transfers data over networks without any human intervention. All right. How about this part where it mentions AI? So it says analysis can be conducted either by humans or artificial intelligence and machine learning in near real time or over a long period. Now, in regards to edge computing, it states that takes place at or near the physical location of either the users, or I should say the user, or the source of the data. By placing computing services closer to these locations, users benefit from faster, more reliable services with better user experiences, while companies benefit by being better able to support latency-sensitive applications, identify trends, and offer better products and services. How about this for size? What about one that's doing it on blockchain? Yeah, you better believe the Jasmy connection. Edge computing is one way that a company can use and distribute a common pool of resources across a large number of locations to help scale centralized infrastructure to meet the needs of increased numbers of devices and data. Now, just real quick, what's the difference between an IoT device and an edge device? That'd be, let's face it, a very good question. Edge devices are physical hardware located in remote locations at the edge of the network with enough memory, processing power, and computing resources to collect data, process that data, and execute it upon in almost real time with limited help from other parts of the network. Now, in regards to an IoT device, like it explains right here, that's a physical object that can basically be connected to the internet and is the source of the data. An edge device is where the data is collected and processed. Now, in this next particular part, you're going to see an example in our actual video demonstration that's going to explain in a little bit more detail in regards to just that, edge computing. Here we go.
What is edge computing and why it matters? Edge computing is exactly what it sounds like, computing that takes place at the edge of corporate networks, with the edge defined as the place where end devices access the rest of the network, things like phones, laptops, industrial robots, and sensors. The edge used to be a place where these devices connected so they could deliver data to and receive instructions and download software updates from a centrally located data center or the cloud. Now, with the explosion of the Internet of Things, that model has shortcomings. IoT devices gather so much data that the sheer volume requires larger and more expensive connections to data centers and the cloud. The nature of the work performed by these IoT devices is also creating a need for much faster connections between the data center or cloud and the devices. For example, if sensors in valves at a petroleum refinery detect dangerously high pressure in the pipes, shutoffs must be triggered as soon as possible. With analysis of that pressure data taking place at distant processing centers, the automatic shutoff instructions may come too late. But with processing power placed local to the end devices, latency is less, and that round-trip time can be significantly reduced, potentially saving downtime, damage to property, and even lives. Even with the introduction of edge devices that provide local computing and storage, there will still be a need to connect them to data centers, whether they are on premises or in the cloud. For example, temperature and humidity sensors in agricultural fields gather valuable data, but that data doesn't have to be analyzed or stored in real time. Edge devices can collect, sort, and perform preliminary analysis of the data, then send it along to wherever it needs to go, to centralized applications or some form of long-term storage, again either on-prem or in the cloud. Because this traffic may not be time-sensitive, slower, less expensive connections, possibly over the internet, can be used. And because the data is pre-sorted, the volume of traffic that needs to be sent at all may be reduced. So the upside of edge computing is faster response time for applications that require it, and slowing the growth of expensive long-haul connections to processing and storage centers. The downside can be security. With data being collected and analyzed at the edge, it's important to include security for the IoT devices that connect to the edge devices and for the edge devices themselves. These devices contain valuable data, but there are also network elements that, if exploited, could compromise other devices that contain stores of valuable assets. With edge computing becoming more essential, it's also important to make sure that the edge devices themselves don't become a single point of failure. Network architects need to build in redundancy and provide failover contingencies in order to avoid crippling downtime if a primary node goes down. The industry has already gone a long way toward addressing the demands of edge computing, and it's becoming mainstream. Its importance is likely to grow even more as the use of real-time applications becomes more prevalent.
All right, so that should give you a better idea of what exactly edge computing is and what it's all about. Let's jump back into this particular outline that we have from Brian. Now, as you can see right here, we're going to highlight some things from the past. Why do that? It's going to give you a better perspective of where we're taking things, especially when it comes to Jasmy. So back on October 26, 2022, Hara mentions this specifically. He says, in the past, PlayStation tried to utilize the hardware resources to analyze genomes. Today, with the Jasmy network, we may be able to do the same thing using distributed computing. The management team has always had that challenging philosophy. Now, when you get more into this, he states, as you all understand, Jasmy is a project that started by ex-Sony board members as the core members. Because of this, we have received messages from people saying that they are looking forward to collaborating with various Sony projects. However, Sony and Jasmy are separate legal entities, and therefore there is no direct relationship between Jasmy Coin and Sony Wallet or Sony Coin, as you asked. I mean, hence why even call it Jasmy if you think about it. I mean, otherwise this would be called, Sony Coin or Sony Token. You get the gist. So it says, and the philanthropic and positive relationship between Jasmy and Sony is still ongoing, and discussions are taking place. Goes on to mention the big data that these mega platformers use as a source of profit, and what's quoted here, the platinum data that we think of, are, so to speak, opposite ideas. However, we do not deny them, but consider them to be coexistent. Our strategy is data times edge computing. And that's one of the main reasons why I wanted to do this particular deep dive in regards to this Jasmy video. We have, for the longest time, reported consistently when it comes to Jasmy and how much, data basically stands out for them, right? Personal data lockers, secure PCs. At the end of the day, the Internet of Things, it's all connected to data. But this concept of edge computing, that brings a different aspect to the whole entire bigger picture, at least in my humble opinion. We're going to get into a little bit more of what that bigger picture is by the time we get to the end of this particular video on the deep dive. So, it states from Hara, their unfair collection and use of information will eventually come to an end. We believe that in the near future, we will have a society that uses, quote, the cloud and the edge of data in the same way that we use banks and personal wallets. As you guys saw in that particular video reel that just played, that lady specifically mentions what? Cloud and the edge of data. She even, I should say, specifically mentions edge of data. And you saw that example. So when we get more into this, how about the whole thing in regards to PlayStation? I mean, shoot, I've had every single PlayStation except for, ironically, PlayStation 4 and 5. My last one was a PS3. Now, Hara goes on to mention, and this is not that long ago, right? This is the end of March of this year. He states, PlayStation had previously attempted to implement high-speed distributed computing using available resources, but the plan was never implemented. We believe that by using a platform that changes the way data is stored and used, we can solve the problems associated with personal information and change many of the conventional wisdom. Now, before we get further into this, I'm just going to state this for myself, and I'm not the only one who believes this. I believe at some particular time in the future, you will see a Sony PlayStation that has implemented what? Blockchain technology. That simply makes sense to me. If you had a Sony PlayStation that had, for instance, instead of a secure PC, you had a secure blockchain, PS6, for instance, powered by Jasmy, You can imagine how massive that news would be, especially if you were a Jasmy holder at these particular prices. Now, I know that sounds really like a stretch, and it's really speculative. Also, keep in mind this. These guys at Jasmy definitely have those connections. For crying out loud, they're former Sony executives. Still quite a few of them. And they still have those great relationships with Sony. Now, I'm going to jump back to this particular outline. And, we're going to get a little bit more into this. And as Brian has mentioned here, his question in the last Discord AMA was constructed to find out more on how broadly Jasmy plans on expanding their reach of nodes for blockchain security. And just that, edge computing. Now, he states, and he's polite to Hara, which is awesome. Hello, Harada-san. Nice to meet you. He says he has, over the last 2 decades, in operations management. He's been in a variety of industries. However, all of this tech is new to him. He has enjoyed learning a lot from researching all of the technology Jasmy is providing, but he has, of course, a question about industries not frequently mentioned much. And that is, what measures is Jasmy taking to address cybersecurity concerns in the autonomous vehicle and drone industry, especially as we migrate towards the 4th industrial revolution? I know a lot of you guys, for instance, watch Rish of Common Sense Crypto, and he consistently mentions the 4th industrial revolution. But like it shows here in this question to Hara, in addition to your efforts in securing and democratizing user data, how will you contribute to ensuring the security of networks supporting level 4 autonomous systems? And that is a really, really good question. Hara did respond. He states, thank you, Brian Russell. In autonomous vehicles, this is an area where edge computing, not cloud networking in particular, is utilized. And here is one of the key things of why I felt as though this needed to get out to you guys. A lot of people don't necessarily use crypto Twitter. I highly suggest it. I thought I'd do a proper video in regards to addressing just this, edge computing. And of course, also Society 5.0. Now, Hara states, edge computing is useful for instantaneous decisions that are too slow for the cloud. And we have identified the challenges of how to make pre-programmed processes faster to make more instantaneous decisions and how to maintain a high level of security to do so. We are currently preparing to release a IR about licensing on how to manage unattended autonomous devices to ensure that their KYM is done correctly and that they are not processed in a way that is not intended by the owner. With unattended processing devices, the issue of who is the owner and the handling of data when rights are transferred is an issue that we are working to provide a solution that can solve. Now, there's of course a lot more in regards to this. Not a whole lot more, but there's more. So, Brian mentions this. He says you can read more about, hear about what Har was talking about in regards to PlayStation 3, how it was used for edge computation, basically like I've mentioned before, if you choose to nerd it out. However, like he says here, let's dive into what it all means. So let's do just that. We're going to jump into this. And it says, this reply from the AMA was very interesting. Bottom line, looks like Jasmy may be trying to help folding at home, like the PS3 did in distributed computing, but with its secure distributed network in the future. I remember folding at home. That was a big deal in regards to PS3 at the time. Now, check this out. If you remember the whole thing of folding at home and why it was such a big deal, let's just take a brief moment to look into this. So it says the PS3 is a powerful system for scientific calculation. At least it was then. In 2007, it was more powerful than CPUs, but less powerful than GPUs, as in graphics processor units if you're not into this type of thing. And took a middle path between scientific flexibility and speed. Other benefits are the uniformity of PS3s. They all have the same processor, GPU, RAM, etc., right? and the ability to stream data quickly to the GPU, allowing for real-time visualization of the protein. Since its induction, over 15 million PS3 users have participated in, for instance, FAH, folding at home, in total donating more than 100 million computational hours. You know, why mention some of these things? Well, you got to keep in mind, now that you have an idea of what this is all about, what about the whole thing with Jasmy, right? You know, we're going to get into that. So just a tad bit more in regards to folding at home. It brings together citizen scientists who volunteer to run simulations of protein dynamics on their personal computers and scientific researchers. Insights from these data are helping scientists to better understand biology and providing new opportunities for developing therapeutics. If you think about what Jasmy is currently doing as we speak, whether it's with the CARE project, whether it's with the personal data lockers, whether it's these secure PCs, I could see why Brian referenced this. That simply makes sense to give you an idea of how Sony is a big player moving forward, especially when it comes to Jasmy. You know, you got to keep in mind, like what we mentioned with WITS, you know, subsidiary. It's not exactly a direct Sony partnership, but they definitely have some subsidiaries that are working with them. Now, I want to jump down more in regards to this. This is from Hara. He says, in the past, PlayStation tried to utilize hardware resources to analyze genomes. Today, with the Jasmy network, we may be able to do the same thing using distributed computing. That's why we reference what you just saw in regards to folding at home. The management team has always had that challenging philosophy. So, you know, what has been folded so far? How much have we folded? I mean, it has statistics about this, right? You know, but one of the key things I want to show you guys here, and I'll blow this up just a tad bit more. I think it's a little bit small. All right, let's pull this up. Yeah, here you go. Now, in regards to back in the day with folding at home, right? It says, what has the project completed so far? Listen to this. This is impressive. It says, we have been able to fold several proteins into the 1.5 millisecond time range with experimental validation of our folding kinetics. This is a time scale 1,000 times longer than any previous atomic level simulation and represents a fundamental advance over previous work. We are now simulating important proteins used in structural biology studies of folding as well as proteins involved in disease. We have been able to perform detailed simulations of many of these proteins at biologically relevant timescales, giving us insights that had previously been unattainable. We have also identified several potential drug candidates, which may be able to fight Alzheimer's, cancer, and infections by viruses. Peer-reviewed scientific papers detailing our results, of course, are posted. But the key thing is, this was a success. And I remember quite a few people talking about it at the time. I used to have PCs back in the day that I used to use. In regards to helping out with providing data to, you know, for cancer research and so on. Why did I do that? Well, cancer has, affected my own family on both sides of the family. When I was a kid, my grandmother, she died 2 days after Christmas, stage 4 pancreatic cancer, terminal cancer. A few months after her, about roughly 4 months, I should say, my grandfather was taken. He had terminal prostate cancer. My mom's sister, my aunt, back in 2012, she, was stricken with lung cancer. She never even smoked a day in her life, but she lived in the area of the Manila, Philippines. They don't have emissions. In that particular district or the area that she lived in, there was the worst black smoke you ever saw. To be able to inhale that every day, you better believe that put her at high risk of getting lung cancer. She was able to unfortunately beat it. My mom, also, stage 4 breast cancer spread into her spine. She ended up getting that back in January 14th of 2013, and she fought that battle for 6 years and 4 months to the day. She passed away January 14th of 2019. April 14th of 2019. 6 years and 4 months to the day. So for me personally, I've always been interested in this whole concept of for instance, trying to tackle cancer, whether using our PCs and so on, or whatever you got out there, folding at home and so on. Does Jasmy have something solid for the future? I think very much is the case. We saw, for instance, what they got going on with the CARE project. But, the key thing from this takeaway is to recognize some of the research of what they're doing. And I think, if anything, that's why Brian is bringing it to our attention. Now, I explained, of course, what, some of these things are in regards to, edge computing and so on. But what about distributed computing? That's a great question. So it says, distributed computing is a method of computer processing in which different parts of a program or different portions of data are processing simultaneously on two or more computers. We are able to use this approach to significantly accelerate our research. For instance, folding at home is one of the largest, most powerful, and most widely distributed computing networks. So, one thing I want to jump back to, and that is, of course, part of this outline, is a little bit more of what we have in regards to all of this. And that is, basically speaking, when it comes to edge computing, what exactly is going to help get the job done, to a sense? Like, some people wonder, like, well, I don't know what you mean, Well, in my opinion, there is three main reasons to consider in regards to just that: edge computing for IoT deployment. And since we're always on the topic of specifically Jasmy, let's take a moment to watch this particular short video clip in regards to those three specific reasons here in a bit. Here we go.
Today, we're going to talk about edge computing. We're defining edge as devices and technologies that exist locally where the IoT solutions are being deployed. Now, there are three good reasons why you should consider edge computing for your IoT deployment. The first is security. A smart factory, for example, may need to have all of their proprietary and very sensitive information contained right on the site where all that factory work is happening. The second is the cost of network bandwidth. We're seeing an emergence in all IoT markets of the use of video and computer vision, machine learning, deep learning technologies, really transforming the way systems can utilize video information. It isn't cost effective to send all of that from the device to the network to the cloud for processing. And the third is really about time. In order for you to be able to conduct your factory the way you need to in real time, you're going to have to make sure you've got all the computing capabilities you need right there at the edge of the network, right near your factory. When I think about the importance of edge computing, I like to think of the example of autonomous driving. If you and your family are cruising around and all of a sudden your vehicle detects a hazard in the roadway ahead, are you going to want your vehicle to have to go communicate across the network, find the nearest data center, and say, hey, I think I found a hazard. What should I do? No, you're going to want that decision to be made right there under the hood of your machine to protect you and your family. Edge computing can simply deliver power that you just can't get from a cloud connection.
All right, let's jump back into our outline. Now, as you can see here, Brian has a lot more information for us, and it gets to this particular part right here. It states, decentralized computation of IoT edge modules and devices can be significantly benefit blockchain security. How so? Well, by leveraging the distributed nature of both technologies. They enhance security, privacy, and resilience of data, transactions, and storage. Now, of course, just like anybody, well, how is that going to happen? He gets right into that. Enhanced security, distributing computation tasks across multiple edge devices reduces single points of failure, making it harder for attackers to compromise the network. At the end of the day, you want to see Jasmy being connected with something like this. How many times have we heard of, particular projects, especially if they're proof of stake? Let's be honest, this doesn't happen so much in proof of work, but it definitely happens in proof of stake, that they get attacked, right? You know what I'm talking about. So it says the decentralized nature of blockchain also makes it difficult to manipulate stored data. Look at this in regards to data. Data integrity and immutability. IoT generates large volumes of data securely stored and managed on a blockchain. Blockchain's immutability ensures recorded data can't be altered or tampered with, maintaining the integrity and authenticity of just that. Yeah, you read it. IoT generated data, hence Jasmy. On top of this, consensus mechanisms, decentralized computation, and IoT edge devices can contribute to blockchain consensus process like proof of work or even proof of stake, make it harder for attackers to gain control over the network or manipulate transaction data. I don't know about you, but if I'm going to be investing into a particular project like Jasmy, I'd like to hear about some of these particular things. And I'm glad to know about some of these things. It instills a little bit more of that confidence, especially moving forward, and especially at these particular prices. How about privacy? At the end of the day, if Jasmy is all about, for instance, data democratization, protecting the privacy of user data, you got to keep in mind, how do these IoT devices get the job done? Brian gets into that as well. So it says privacy. IoT edge devices can perform local data processing, reducing the need for centralized servers. Combining this with blockchain's encryption and data distribution enhances user privacy as sensitive info isn't exposed to centralized entities. At the end of the day, it's your data and it's nobody else's business. Think about it. Completely opposite of the old Facebook/Meta model. And you can even add, for instance, Google, Amazon Web Services to that mix, and so on. Brian also goes on to mention scalability. Like I've always said 100 times by this point, especially when it comes to, any particular blockchain project. I know I talk about Quant a lot too. Can your project scale? At the end of the day, am I going to have a great user experience, or is it only me and a select other few people? And if it is only me and a select other few people, then I guess, or I should say, that means that we're stuck in the mud with the project. A good, solid project has to be able to scale. Everybody has to have the same, high performance user experience, if you will. And if you can't scale, then start to say, I don't really want to invest in your project. So scalability, decentralized computation allows IoT devices to process data locally, reducing the load on central servers and blockchain networks. This helps increase scalability of both systems, handling larger data volumes and transactions without sacrificing security. Now, he says, with that said, integrating decentralized IoT edge modules and devices with blockchain networks offers significant security benefits. How so? Well, by leveraging the strengths of both technologies. This combo creates a more secure and efficient ecosystem for data transactions and storage. I mean, it's really eloquently. Brian, if you're watching this at some point, I got to salute you, sir. You did a really good job of explaining this in your outline. How about this? And we're almost towards the bottom in regards to this. By processing data at the edge of the network, the time taken to send data to and from central servers is minimized. This results in faster response times and improved real-time processing, which can be crucial for time-sensitive applications such as autonomous systems. And then on top of that, speaking of autonomous systems and IoT and all that, he says, so after all that, I hope this makes more sense in regards to why Sony CES 2023, as a consensus, had me very excited for the potential future use of Jasmy. If the team can't complete their goals and launch the platform successfully, then the sky is the limit. And that is the way I look at it as well. And here's some examples of how this could all be used, right? As you can see, look at this. There's a lot of examples. You can just follow the visuals. This is an example from WITS. Cybersecurity Handbook, Sales Campaign. I mean, we talked a lot about WITS, but, like I mentioned, from February 14th to March 31st, at least a while back, the paper price for a popular cybersecurity manual entitled Automobile Cybersecurity Support Campaign will be available following, a special price. They're going to provide some of this stuff you see right here. Here's some things from, IoT, Internet of Things, like the drones. The drone made in Japan to support the times to come. Gives other examples, right, of what you see right here. So there's, of course, some of that stuff. And of course, he has more references. All right. And then on top of that, I do want to get to this part real quick. Let me blow this up. Tadashi Morita invented the Felica chip NFC-F global standard with Sony and invented DC microgrid technology with Sony CSL, helping pave the way for Society 5.0 with Hiroki, excuse me, if I'm probably butchering it up. Hiroaki, I should say, Kitano. I never knew Kitano was a Society 5.0 visionary. Like it says, you know, get the freaking blankety blank, right? So we're going to get into this for just a brief moment. And it states here, in 1971, he joined Sony Corporation, and since then, let me blow this up a little bit more. There we go. And, you know, and since then, basically speaking, he's applied for about 100 patents while working for Sony. Invention of NFC technology and its standardization are one of his accomplishments. Now look at this. Since 2013, he joined the OES project of Sony Computer Science Laboratory and invented DC microgrid technology. Pretty impressive stuff. On top of that, check this out. Let's blow this up a little bit more too. Can't do it well. Yeah, I can't do it on that one. So we'll just keep it right there. Yeah, keep it right there. So it states, what is NFC-F? I mean, who wouldn't wonder what that is, right? I'm glad he explains that. So it says, NFC-F, the Felica communication technology, is defined as one of the communication methods specified in NFC IP-1 and JIS X 6319-4 and by the NFC Forum. As a result, all NFC devices support NFC-F communication. Mobile phones equipped with NFC can exchange data with NFC-F-based IC cards and devices. Look at the reference mentioned here. You have it straight from Sony. All right, and on top of that, there's some more that's posted here, you know, such as the study on how they show decentralization can be achieved using P2P frameworks. They have this thing about direct current open energy systems. But it gives you an idea if you're wanting to nerd it out in regards to that. Last but not least, look at this. Hiroaki Kitano, he's got a PhD. He's the chairman of Task Force on Co-Creation of Society 5.0. He's the president and CEO of Sony Computer Science Laboratories, Inc. Look at this quote. The future is not mere continuation of the past, and it is up to us to design and create it. The Society 5.0 report from Keter, I can't even pronounce that, Red, was compiled with a proactive mindset that welcomes not just technological innovation, but disruptive change, positioning both as opportunities to co-create the future that we wish to see. What is that future that they wish to see? Because here in the United States, maybe we don't want that future. But you got to keep in mind, just because one country doesn't see that vision doesn't mean that there's not big opportunities for other countries in the other side of the world. We're talking about the Far East here, for crying out loud. So, you know, like what says also, the report points to the realization of a sustainable society whose fundamental values include recognition of all forms of diversity and their inclusion, and where personal aspirations and imaginations are highly valued. I mean, maybe you're wondering, you mentioned specifically Society 5.0. At the beginning of the video, Max. Are you ever going to get into it? You better believe I am. So without further ado, here it is towards the end of this particular deep dive video, Society 5.0. Here you go.
In Japan, innovation has been transforming our society, in which people can extend human ability. For example, a technology which improves our performance. With new wearable interfaces which analyze wearers' movement using AI and accumulate the techniques of great performers as electrical stimuli, wearers may play like great performers due to the stimuli sent by interfaces to wearers' muscles. Telexistence technology realizes our own avatar robots in practical use, enabling us to see, hear, and feel beyond time and distance, as though we were there. Assistive suits, which read wearers' wills by receiving biological signals sent from the brain to the muscles, support users' heavy lifting work. The suits reduce the user's burden and let us handle heavy work much more safely and comfortably. Advanced technology will support a variety of activities and improve our lifestyles. Japan aims at realizing Society 5.0, a technology-based, human-centered society.
All right, now that we know what Society 5.0 looks like and have the gist of it and so on, I just basically wanted to show you guys, of course, that. And if anything, once again, thank Mr. Brian here for this particular deep dive thread in regards to some of the things that we just recently learned, right? Edge computing, how it's tied in IoT, how it basically makes sense when it comes to Jasmy. And on top of that, when it comes to this whole concept of Society 5.0. Understand this. At the end of the day, connect all the dots. That's the bottom line. We cover so much things that have to do with the Internet of Things when it comes to Jasmy. They are a key proponent, in my opinion, to get the job done for the future, whether it comes to Web3, the advancement of these smart cities. The concepts may seem like science fiction to us here in the United States and other parts of the world, but you better believe that there is an entire society of people on the opposite side of the earth who are taking this very, very serious. At these particular prices for Jasmy at 0.006 or 0.007 of where we're at now, understand that this may very well be one of the best risk to reward ratioed digital assets out there, the way I personally look at it. It's not financial advice, but that is the way I see it. On top of that, combine this with a potential Q4 lockup at the end of this particular year. You got to keep in mind that's bullish in itself. Some people have stated, well, it's not going to be all at once. Okay, so it's not all at once. Consider this. What if they only do, for instance, 10% of the time, 25% of the time, you name it. But the point is, getting to that path of a 70% lockup, that is absolutely huge. And last but not least, I want to mention this. I am going to try to find out more information in regards to potential token burns. I have seen some of the rumors in regards to that. But at the end of the day, glad to do this particular deep dive. We will be paying close attention to any info in regards to an AI engine dropping here soon in regards to Q2 2023. So that's it in regards to today's video. Like, comment, subscribe if you haven't done so already. Go ahead and tune in at 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific for more of our live show if you enjoy live shows. Thanks again for watching. You all have a blessed day. We'll see you on the next one.